TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Diamond, your State Farm Insurance agent in DeKalb. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Diamond and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. Don't forget Kids Eat for Free on Thursday. For delivery or pickup, go to pizzavilla.com or call 815-758-8116. Elder Care Services of DeKalb. Safe, secure, and supported. Helping you stay in home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdekalb.org. My Insurance Guy in Sycamore covers Medicare to auto care and everything in between. Stop by at 204 South Main Street in Sycamore. Call 815-899-0950 or online at myinsuranceguy.com.
And welcome to the TD Ryan Unleashed podcast number 48. Honored and privileged to have with us from the 2nd Ward Alderman from the city of Sycamore. It's Mike Rodriguez. Mike, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing just fine. And yourself, TD?
I'm doing great. Thanks
That's
for taking
good.
the time to do this, Mike. I was talking to Margaret Barnes there at Sycamore City Council and said, Mike Rodriguez would be a good guy to talk to. Now, tell us you were appointed in 2025. Tell us how that came about, please, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So I initially actually ran in 2021 thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so I initially ran in 2021 against Pete Paulson, and he'd been there for a while. You know, it was kind of my first step in local government, and I wanted to kind of give it a run. I'd been friends with some of the other aldermen that were there previously, and I was like, you know what, I think it's time for me to kind of do my part. And unfortunately, I didn't win, but I am a firm believer that things happen for a reason. And then Pete decided not to run again, and I wasn't looking to run. And then the mayor reached out to me and was like, hey, we got an opening. Is this something that you'd be interested in? And after having a conversation with the wife and the kids, I was like, you know what, absolutely, let's do it.
What did people say to you? Why get into politics now at the way it's such a volatile time now? There's always mudslinging, the mudslinging degree that it's taken to. Did that make you a little reluctant to get into this?
It did a little bit, but I got to be honest. So we always preach to our kids that if you want to make a difference, you got to go out there and actually do something about it. So obviously, with the things that are kind of going around now, and my daughter and son are old enough to kind of see the things that are going on, and being Hispanic myself, I tell them if you got to make a difference, you got to go out there and do something about it. So this is a way of me kind of showing them, listen, I can make a difference, even if it is only here in Sycamore, but I can make a difference, but I have to actually get out there and do something. So I'm hoping that I'm a role model for them, and they're proud of me, for doing this and stepping up.
Think national, but act local, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yes, sir.
And what did you learn? What did you learn in that first campaign? What was it like running for office?
It was different because, again, I'd never done anything like that. So I had to really kind of learn a little bit more about the inner workings of, local government, the city. At the time, that was when the whole water issue was kind of going on. So kind of being thrust into that and not knowing the full situation then. So having to deal with that, I think it was good as well to kind of get out there and meet some of the constituents and really just listen to things that they have to say. Again, I'm kind of an outgoing guy, but still going to somebody's house and knocking on doors and just introducing yourself, I thought was good. I did bring my kids a couple of times, and they were a little nervous about it. Obviously, still being in in elementary and in high school, but it was good for them as well too to kind of get out there and see the.
What a great
Dad does.
We're talking about kids and civics and not knowing civics. What a way to learn to go out what you did while he's campaigning.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I gotta use them a little bit. You know what I mean? See, help.
We know.
Yeah, absolutely. Help me a little bit.
And why run, Mike? Why you mentioned that though, but once you lost, and like you said, you were going to get out of it. You were going to maybe run again later.
I thought about it, but at the time, I was kind of picking some other things up with coaching. So I'm a volunteer coach here in the Sycamore area. So I was kind of doing a little bit more of that. And then
what are you coaching?
So I coach basketball and soccer. So I used to coach in AYSO with both my kids, and then now I coach for Sycamore Force, which is a feeder basketball program for obviously Sycamore High School.
Right.
And then I'm also one of the coaches with another coach here in DeKalb for an AAU basketball team. It's called Outwork Elite. So it's kind of like the best kids in Sycamore DeKalb, and we could try to go into the suburbs and compete and really kind of give the kids an opportunity to play basketball outside of just basketball season.
I love that. I lost my father at a young age too, and that was so important to have my coaches. The coaches became my dad, and You must have that. I'm sure you have kids that don't have their father, and whether you want to or not, suddenly you're a father figure for them. Right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's probably one of the most rewarding parts, if I'm honest with you, just knowing that I'm a chapter in their story, and being able to kind of help shape them and mold them and in a positive way, I think is, to me, that's the most rewarding part. Absolutely.
Of course, you were an outstanding athlete back in Sterling there. You grew up in Sterling, is that right, Mike?
I did, yep. So I was initially born in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
I lived there till I was about 7. At that point in time, my mom got really sick with cancer, and all my family was back here, so we decided to move back to be closer to family. I didn't know it at the time, but she, the writing was kind of on the wall that she was going to pass, so that's ultimately why we moved back here. But from 7 to 18, I grew up in Sterling.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us about your time at Sterling High School. Will you put us in the involved? Were you in this student body president?
Nope. So I was voted.
Kind of on sports.
Yeah, I played basketball, and then I was voted for the class secretary. Don't know how I got that because I didn't run for it, but they gave it to me. I'll be honest, I don't even think I did anything with it, but I guess you could say that was my first step in a assigned role.
And as an athlete, what did you get from your coaches and the teamwork and how you learn now that you're in the city council that you all got to work together, right? You can't have the individual people just going off on their own.
Oh no, absolutely. I think one of the big things that I really took away, and I still talk to my coach today, is just that everyone has to play their part. Everyone has to do their role. If everybody does their role, then everything works like a well-oiled machine. So that was Coach Yak. I got to give him a shout out.
We had the DeKalb girls wrestling team here last week, and the next week we're going to have the Sycamore girls wrestling team. And their attitude about losing, I just couldn't believe the 1-year-old and lost to the state champion. Rather than be upset about it, she said it was a learning experience, and she said she had taken her down, but they were outside the out of bounds, but took her down. So she had a great attitude, couldn't wait to wrestle her again. And I just thought it was so refreshing to hear that rather than complain about how the official got it wrong or she cheated. She admitted that she lost, but she had a positive attitude about getting back out there and wrestling her again.
That's awesome. I tell you what, that just shows you the resilience though of some of these young athletes, and how they're just so much more mature than I feel like I was at that age.
Such a terrible loser, man. I never shook hands with people. Always throw them out, and then to see that, just so refreshing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it gets back to the coaching.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, that's we have some great coaches. I know you're going to speak to the Sycamore girls, the DeKalb girls, but yeah, absolutely great coaching. Yeah.
I agree. We're talking to Mike Rodriguez, the second-year Alderman in Sycamore. Now, Mike, you studied at Northern Illinois. What did you study there?
Health education.
Okay.
Yep. Health education and minor in coaching and driver's ed.
Okay.
So I'm not teaching per se, but I am teaching I always say this, I am teaching, I'm just teaching in a different arena.
There you go.
So in my business now, I'm a district sales manager for a athletic footwear retailer here in the Chicagoland area. So
I'm looking at the shoes right
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So we, most of my average age goes from about 18 to 25. So still coaching, still mentoring, still being that father figure to a lot of them, just a little bit older kids, and
Okay.
How to properly manage their business, how to be a mature adult, how to handle all these different situations. But there are times when, again, the coach in me comes out, and you got to kind of say, hey, listen, straighten up a little bit,
Now, how that, we had Alderman Koski on here from Sycamore, and she talked about, and when she was at Northern, she studied, I read the actual term, but it's old people and their health, basically, and the fact that we have to move more than we do. Why health? Why was health important to you, Mike, when you studied?
I think for me is when I looked at all the curriculum and what really made sense to me. Obviously, being active and coaching and getting out there, to me, tying in health with the coaching aspect and being healthy and giving the kids and being able to teach them different forms of health and how they can keep themselves healthy, to me was just, I guess it connected with home, more so than, history or math. As I get older, I think history probably would have been best because I'm infatuated with history now. But when I was a kid, absolutely not. I think that's just as I mature a little bit and understand and respect the past, it becomes a little bit more.
Mr. Hill at Niles West was my history teacher. That got to be he just made history so interesting, and I just can't get enough of it now.
Oh, I know, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just love it. And those that don't learn are doing repeated, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, we're recording this on March 9th. Mike was kind enough to come in here. Now, this story was developing actually at the end of last week and then over the weekend. I'm just going to go by what's in the Daily Chronicle here. And that's the headline in the Chronicle on March 5th was Sycamore Fire Chief out, Mayor, City Manager refused to provide details. And then the subcaption, City Manager will begin process of recruiting a permanent fire chief. Now, back on the March 5th, Thursday, Sycamore firefighter confirmed that there was a new interim fire chief in charge after online rumors circulating suggesting Fire Chief Bart Gilmore had been placed on leave. City Manager Michael Hall told Shaw Local Media that the city has plans to recruit a new permanent fire chief, but also said they can not comment on personnel matters, as did the fire department also saying they cannot comment on personnel matters. And obviously you can't either, Michael. But from what we understand, Chief Thomas will be coming in on March 9th, the former DeKalb fire chief. In terms of just the fireman voicing his concern about the lack of personnel, I guess would be a good way to put that. And do we know where we stand right now with Chief Gilmore in terms of his status for working for the city?
Yeah, obviously I can't comment on personnel matters,
Right.
but what I will say is that I love the direction that the city is going as far as the interim chief. I've heard nothing but positive things about, obviously the old DeKalb fire chief. Yep. So I know he's going to help us temporarily and for an interim role and really kind of help us bridge the gap so we can find more of a permanent solution. I'm excited on the direction where we're going. I think a lot of people forget that in the past couple of years, we got a new ladder truck,
Right.
that we found at a still. We have the new fire station that just recently had their, kind of like a grand opening, or I guess it is a grand opening because they're utilizing it now.
February 1st.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that is an absolutely outstanding building. It was the first time, and something this small really threw me off. But the fire doors open sideways; they don't go up like a normal door. And the first time they opened up, I wasn't expecting it, and it completely caught me off guard. But
I didn't know that.
yeah, the building, the building, we took a tour of it, is absolutely phenomenal. The living conditions for the firefighters is 10 times greater than the old fire station. I think when you talk about quality of life for the firefighters and the things that they have to go through, that fire station is really gonna, be a benefit for all of them. But then also a great recruiting tool as well too. And I also know too that they added the all the training, like the training towers and the stairs and everything that goes along with it. Yeah, so I think that'll be great not only for our community but the communities around it, because the other communities can then come and utilize those training facilities.
Well, we'll play the devil's advocate here just for a minute, Mike. So what would you say to the people that's putting the cart before the horse? Consider we have this beautiful new fire station, but we don't have enough personnel to manage. That's my understanding that with the town and fire fire, there was a call right before that call. So the firemen were out on that call, and nobody was there to bring the truck out for the town and jury firemen. Is there a severe shortage of firemen as far as you know? And I noticed the city, you guys are addressing this whole issue, aren't you, about the fire department?
Yeah, so I think right now when you look at it, we do have some cadets that will be hired full time, as from what I believe. I know you could say that we're understaffed, but we had one that was out that just retired. So congratulations to him. We had one that was injured, and then there was one that was on leave. So when it comes to being understaffed, I think it was just kind of like the perfect storm at that point in time.
Yeah.
But overall, I think we're doing a good job at getting those positions filled, and we have a good action plan to kind of make sure that those positions are backfilled.
And the final question on this one would be, just the transparency aspect, Mike. Do you think, and again, I'm not asking you to call anybody out or anything like that, but could this have been handled a little bit differently? Could the information have come out sooner? Or is it a case where it's a personnel matter and you can't share that?
I think it's tough.
I know it's a very fine line.
Yeah. No, I think it's tough because when it does become those personnel matters, you want to keep that, legally. Obviously, we can't, say here or there.
Right.
But I mean, I think it's kind of tough at that point in time to really kind of give any more.
The city will take this as a learning lesson in terms of
absolutely
how to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in really good hands with our current mayor and the city manager. I think they really have the best interests at heart, or the city's best interests at heart, and they want to do well. So, I don't think it's because they're not doing their jobs or they handled it incorrectly. It just, unfortunately, sometimes changes.
I didn't want to put you on the spot on that one, but thank you for answering that.
Oh, absolutely.
You're very limited in what you can say there. But in a related story, what has to become of the old Sycamore old fire station, too? And again, that's a fascinating building, but city officials have not yet shared what, if any, plans they have for the new former fire station, number 1 at 535 DeKalb Avenue. Sycamore City Manager Michael Hall told Shaw Media on January 7th that there are no immediate plans to retrofit the building for a different use. So pretty much we're looking to sell it, huh, Mike, at this point?
I don't know if you can. I mean, that building is extremely, extremely old.
Here's the kicker. The former fire station has been heated by the same boiler for the past 69 years.
Yeah.
and the boilers were prone to go out. Yeah.
A ton, yeah. So we took when I initially was appointed, we were able to do a tour, and when I tell you, like when I was just saying earlier about the living conditions, I don't know how they did it. Like we had makeshift rooms for the firefighters to sleep in. They didn't really get any privacy. We took a look at that boiler. The boiler's older than I am.
Yeah,
I mean it.
Without heat.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know what we can do with that building, if I'm honest with you. I mean, I know it's connected, and they utilize it for other things.
It is a dinosaur.
It is, yeah. It's like, do you want to keep it because it is a relic, or is that something that you just tear down and you restart over and look to build something else for the community there? I don't know what that future looks like. So
Yeah, because on the flip side, we saw that where the old school there, when they were using for the administrative building there, more, and then they're going to retro that for a different purpose. It's great
Yeah.
to keep an old building like that.
Absolutely.
But this one, I don't want to say it doesn't have any character, but there's really no.
it's old. Yeah. It might be better just to knock her down. Yeah.
Because I work in Overhays Gym here in DeKalb, and it's
Yeah.
over 100-year-old building, and the boiler is also over 100 years old, and they're trying to figure out what best to do with that building. It's such a classic, beautiful building, but a boiler that's 100 years old, the guy who knew how to get it going, he has since passed, so nobody really knows how to work the
Yeah, it's tough. But that's the thing with Hayes Gym. Like that gym is like, I've never seen a gym like that before. I mean, they're so old. It's so cool to play in there.
And
You don't want to
it's like
run.
waiting,
Yeah, you don't want to run your hardest because you may run into a wall. But yeah, that gym is definitely it's just different. Yeah. You got to kind of keep that. Now, again, that goes back to us being history nerds, I guess.
Right, as they walk around, I think about the years, the people that have played basketball in that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yep, absolutely.
Very good. All right, now the parking. Now, I was there at the Sycamore meeting, Pennsylvania, when the issue came up about parking in the city of Sycamore. Effective February 2nd, 2026, the city of Sycamore will increase the minimum fine for parking meters violation to $10. That people that don't know about this are probably saying, what? The update aims to improve parking turnover in downtown area. Let's remind people, Mike, what it used to be, right? Or what it used to be $1.
$1, yep. Yeah.
That was the fine, and people would just absorb the fine. And the big question is people parking in front of their businesses, which again is a nice thing to be able to do, but the customer always comes first. And tell us about how this has played out since February 1st. It's only March 9th now, but have you had much pushback on this in terms of the parking?
Not much, to be honest. The only pushback obviously would be from some of the business owners. I think some of it was because they wanted to park there. I do get where some of the salons, the women will go and get their hair done, and it does take a little bit longer. And,
Right.
If their time is up, then they got to go back out there and feed the meter. I understand it from that aspect. Initially I thought the $10 was a big jump. I would have been a little bit happier with $5, but I also understand why we went to 10. So those meters are extremely old, and from what I'm being told, the parts that are the replacement parts for any of those meters, I think they're only going to be made for another year or two. So at some point in time, they're going to become obsolete,
Yeah.
and we're not going to be able to use them anymore. So we're going to have to find something new in the future, anyways. So by going to 10, after I kind of thought about this, if we wanted to go to more of an electrical meter, so we don't have to have somebody physically actually, go and check the meters, we're going to need some sort of money to replace those at that given
We've
time.
been operating at a loss for years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
But you also have the novelty aspect because I think we made a national news story.
and that's the thing is that one of the biggest concerns that I have is the constituents want us to grow, and they want Sycamore to continue to develop, and keep up with, DeKalb per se, but then they also want to keep a small town.
Right.
So it's like a fine line and how you walk that. What I will say is there are 3 or 4 free parking areas that are around there. So yes, you got to walk a little bit more, but going back to the health thing, it's never a bad thing. and I travel in and out of Chicago and the suburbs quite a bit. And it's just the norm there. You have to park a little bit further away to get to where you want to go, or you have to pay for parking. And even down there, I'm paying for parking, and it's $20 to $60,
Right.
versus, the dimes and pennies that we're charging now. So
I used to live in downtown Chicago, and I'm along the valleys, and there was on the second or third floor, I forget which, but there was an escalator going up to the health club. And I'd watch these people take the escalator, then they get in the health club and they get on the stair machines.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
No, not forbid we park a couple of blocks from where we have to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And as you point out, DeKalb, Sycamore has free lots for stays longer than 2 hours. The city provides free public parking lots located throughout the downtown area. I never heard anybody complain about not finding a parking spot in Sycamore. So,
No, and that's the funny thing is I don't know if like my wife and I will go downtown and we'll grab a bite to eat on the weekends. I think that's really the only time that I don't even want to say struggle to find a spot. Like we always find a spot, even if it is a metered or unmetered. You know what I mean? So it's never crazy. Outside of the the Pumpkin Fest or the car show. Like obviously, but I don't think it's too bad of an issue. So, but I haven't had any complaints or concerns about it since. So
that's good to hear that. I thought it was much to do about nothing, not nothing, but much to do about a small issue.
Yeah.
And then we talked about Tom and Jerry's. And first of all, Mike, talk about the response from the community. Not only the greater DeKalb County area, the way they rallied behind Tom and Jerry's. It's been amazing.
Oh, it's as we talk about this, I just got chills. So I live over by where Tom and Jerry's is their temporary location.
Okay.
Yeah, and ever since they opened, that parking lot is packed. I think that just goes to show, like, again, we talked about that small town feel. I think you're seeing that live now with just the people, kind of gathering around this company that's been a staple for the DeKalb Sycamore for as long as I can remember. And not only is it good for Tom and Jerry's, but then you think about the local businesses that are around there. So the greenhouse that's right there. Little Caesars, like all those businesses that are right there, Hobnobbers, they're all going to benefit from the customers coming over there more. So I think it's absolutely awesome.
It really is great. Now, again, the way the Sycamore Planning and Zoning Commission will consider requests from Diane I'm so bad with it. Patulli?
Yeah, I believe that's it. Yeah, I believe that's correct.
To change the zoning for the DeKalb Evident property. Now, maybe you can clarify this for us, Mike. They said they want to change the property zoning from a central business district to a highway business district. What is the difference, sir? Do you know the difference? Central business district versus the highway?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not exactly sure.
Because I'm guessing the central would be in downtown Sycamore.
Yeah.
Being off the beaten path there on the road is a
it could be
a business district.
Maybe because it's off a piece.
Saunter, the director of community development, describes the current zoning and property as anomalous. In the March 2nd email to City Manager Michael Hall, he wrote the central business district properties are typically within the city's downtown district. So it's not in the downtown district. Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha.
But it's great that they're going to rebuild. But like you said, right now they're currently at 265 West Peace Road there for their temporary. You said that's been full.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, we went and my son and I rode our bikes past there the other day, and it was jam packed. I think that's like a little benefit for me is like I can literally ride my bike now, and if I want to go get some cheese fries or some chili or something, I literally just got to ride my bike now. So
that's awesome. Now let's talk about cannabis here. It's funny when you mentioned the food because I just saw somewhere they opened a cannabis dispensary and they had a Subway sandwich shop in there as well.
Yeah.
And it's doing Landover business, you can well imagine. And then the Girl Scouts were out there selling cookies. But a cannabis dispensary approved in Sycamore, chance for a state permit. I love this, very high, since the new potential owner. But let's talk about this, because I remember a couple of years back, they were referred to in this article when a gentleman wanted to grow marijuana in Sycamore and got shot down big time. Previously, but tell us about that, Mike, and now allowing this cannabis store to be here in Sycamore.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it. I did some initial polling and just kind of spoke to some friends and some family and some neighbors around the area and just kind of asked their opinion on it. And 90% were absolutely okay with it. I can't speak to the first time that business got shot down because I wasn't in role yet.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So that was before I got there. But I don't know if Sycamore was ready at that point in time. I think now that it's been legalized for a while, that this will be a good benefit to the city. It's a pretty much free comps. We haven't had this business in the city for ever. So that will be revenue that the city hasn't been getting. And there's already.
Will that be earmarked for? As into the standard when that goes to?
I don't know. Absolutely no. As of right now, no, I don't. But
okay.
When you think about DeKalb, they have two. So now Sycamore, we're not giving that tax money to DeKalb, and they can just stay local in Sycamore. I think it's in the right area. You talk about Subway. There's going to be a Jersey Mike's that's going to be right next to it. So very similar. I would assume that the Jersey Mike's will do really well as well.
It was 2043. Chris Meyer, Mayor was the name who came in asking for a bowling plate in Sycamore. Nancy Koppel, third ward Alderman in Sycamore, said that the poor guy, he was dealing with church people and everything. It was like a big difference. I felt like using this was more welcoming to the city of Sycamore. So obviously, again, growing is different than selling.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's concerned about any riffraff hanging out in front of the building or anything like that, because we certainly haven't seen that in DeKalb.
No, yeah, I don't. Yeah, maybe I think that may have been some of the concern with some of the people who were against it. But yeah, I don't see that. It's Sycamore. We got a great community here in Sycamore. You know what I mean? There's not, there's good people. It's good businesses. So I don't foresee any issues.
And what about weed itself? We had Barb Larson here, the third ward alderman here in DeKalb, but she was talking about her granddaughter, I guess, and saying that the teenagers aren't drinking anymore. They're smoking a lot more marijuana, which is not necessarily a good thing to hear there. But in terms of marijuana use, what are your thoughts when you tell us about your family? The young son, you said?
Yep, yeah. So my daughter's 16, so she's a junior at Sycamore High School, and my son is he's 11, so he's fifth grade, and then I have a 2.5-year-old.
What are you telling them about pot?
Listen, I just tell them just to be honest. Both my kids both my kids are athletes. So it's between soccer and basketball, and they're constantly on the go. So they play for our local DKCU academy team, and that soccer's year round. So we talk a lot about listen, if you want to be the best athlete, you got to do the right things for your body. So that means eating right. Means drinking enough fluids, not doing the things that aren't necessarily good for your body. So my wife and I are very open. With we just want to be honest with us.
Okay.
I myself I don't use it, but I do have friends and family that do. And they listen, to each their own. It doesn't bother me either way.
Okay.
I just tell my kids to be honest with me. But My daughter is she's the type that she gets upset if she were to get a B in school. So when she comes home and she's upset about that, I think weeds is the last thing I have to worry about. So
That's a very honest
yeah.
answer. Now, we just had Mark Sykes here from the DeKalb High School, also teaches driver's ed there. And what is your daughter want to drive? Because I was telling two of my grandkids don't want to get their driver's license. It's just at least not right now. All right, I know you were the same way. At 15, I was chomping at the bit.
Oh, absolutely.
Does your daughter want to drive?
Absolutely, yeah. So she's younger for her age group. So she got her license this past summer, and I tell you what, the amount of time that I get back not having to drive her to and from practices is amazing. No, but yeah, she absolutely loves driving. She likes the freedom, being able to kind of do what she wants.
Yeah.
She loved it until she realized how much she had to put in the gas tank, and then she's coming to mom and dad quite a bit. But no, yeah, she wanted to drive. I think that's the big difference is a lot of my employees in the city, they don't want to drive. But there's so much public transportation to where they don't necessarily need to. Where down here, we may not have as much, but there's a little bit more freedom that she can have down here. So
We had Scott Zimet, the insurance agent here, and I was learning. I didn't know that. Then you have to have 50 hours on the road. 10 hours a night with the parents. Scott was talking about driving around with his son and daughter. Have you done that? What was that like for you, right? Or did you put mom?
No. So it was kind of 50-50 actually. The coach in me comes out, so I'm a little bit tougher on her on certain things. But she did really, really well. I will say she did a fantastic job. She was almost too cautious to where it almost got us in accidents because she was too cautious.
Right.
But I think that comes with the familiarity of being behind the wheel. And again, I think it's just being honest and just be like, listen, yes, this is a luxury for you to be able to have. You're going to get your freedom, but this is it can be a weapon if you use it the wrong way. And if you're not careful and you're not paying attention, you're on your cell phone. So I will tell you that Life 360, the app that you can kind of track your kids, is phenomenal because it lets me know if she's speeding. It lets me know where she stops and everything. She can kind of
Oh, even speeding?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If she were to get in an accident, it would alert me that she got in an accident or if she has too many abrupt stops. So it kind of, lets me be big brother a little bit without,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We're joined by Mike Rodriguez about various issues concerning Sycamore. 2026 road work ahead in Sycamore. I know a lot of people in DeKalb are obsessed with parking and road work. Resolution approving road construction under motor fuel tax for fiscal 2026. The resolution will allocate $500,000 for road work in 6 city streets. So tell us about the motor fuel tax, what you know about that, Mike. And obviously these streets have been determined. There's a way to determine which street needs the most work, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So from what I know, the city will go and kind of take a look at what roads need the best or need the most work, and then they'll use that fund to then go and work on those roads. I'll be honest, I think for the most part, our roads are pretty good in Sycamore. Driving around, I don't see too many issues. I know the biggest issue that's on everybody's mind right now is obviously peace, and then the expanding it to 4 lanes and the amount
Raceway, you
of
mean?
the amount of time that it's kind of taken. But I think once that gets done, I think that's going to be phenomenal for the city. It also help a little bit more. The biggest issue that we had was where they're widening that bridge on Peace. They weren't when they initially did it the first time I came down. I myself was kind of confused. I was like, "There's not a lot of markers here."
No.
And I was at night, And then I went home and I told my wife, and she's like, "It's funny you say that because there's so many people talking on Facebook about this." So, obviously some people made some calls. I made a call to the mayor, and he's like, "We're already on it." So they got it taken care of, and now no issues. But
Yeah, Facebook does work to a degree, doesn't it? I mean, we have our Mayor of Portland, Mark Petrosky, been on a couple of times, and he's real good about answering questions from Portland, the people that have issues. And
Yeah.
do you like that, Mike? Do you want to be a presence online, or do you get a lot of?
yes and no.
I can see both sides.
Yeah, I think it's good to kind of get people's opinions on there, whether that's good or bad. Sometimes people may not feel comfortable voicing their concerns, so they do go to that anonymously. But on the flip side of that, I think some people just say whatever the first thing that comes to their mind versus actually thinking it through and
Right.
realizing the ramifications on some of the things that they say about or to certain other people. So words still hurt, So I think yes and no.
And what do your constituents tell you about most? I put this out from AI, top 5 issues concerning the city of Sycamore, but what do your constituents tell you, Mike, should be the top 5, or at least 1 or 2?
I think one of the top issue is, one was the parking. When I first came in, that was kind of the big thing. And then the second one is just like housing and then business development. And, what are we doing to kind of continue to get Sycamore to grow? Some people want more housing. Some people don't, depending on how you look at it. It can help either or. I'm a fan of building more housing. I think it keeps the market down. I think it gives.
Well, we have the term affordable housing.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt you there, but and people tend to shy away from
Yeah,
it. Whenever you hear Section 8, people immediately freak out. Does that scare people in Sycamore, do you think? Or in general, when I hear, affordable housing?
I think it does, but they need to do the complete research. I think, initially when you say affordable housing, they think Section 8. Well, there's no Section 8 in Sycamore, right? So when I think to me, it's just making sure that they understand what that absolutely means. And that means affordable housing for people who can. You know what I mean? I remember the first time that.
And they want to live in Sycamore.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time that I bought a house, and had the market not been where it was at, I never would have been able to buy my first house. But because there were enough opportunities, and my wife and I were able to buy our first house. And I think about, and this kind of goes back to our earlier conversation. You think about Sycamore and the small community and the small feel. This is a great place to start a family. This is a great place for first homeowners. You know what I mean? The school districts are amazing. Downtown life is awesome. There's so much to do, and it's that close-knit community. Again, I can't. I know I keep saying this, but I can't say enough about how proud I am of Sycamore and kind of where we're at.
Well, you should be, man. I grew up in Lincolnwood. I went to Niles West, where I had 1,200 kids in my graduating class, but I didn't know half of them.
Yeah.
So, to go to a small town and go to a small school like that, it's so cool to see that.
Yep, absolutely.
So, again, one of the issues I kind of touched on that, public safety and staffing shortages, we kind of dealt with that. The police department, I know, is always, they're looking for quality people, right? And it's a tough profession to want to get into.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is. I think you had our police chief on not too long ago.
Just last week.
Yeah. I think with us bringing him on, he is fantastic. He's the conversations that I've had about him and the direction that he wants to go and the development of his officers, and the vision that he has. Like we're extremely lucky to have him.
Yeah, he had a big budget when he was in St. Charles. Somebody from St. Charles, and had a big budget that he worked with there.
Yeah.
So again, being a guy who knows his dollars as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Very smart. And from what I've been told and what I hear is he's a great culture builder in the department as well.
Now, Mike, when you talk about economic development, now we were talking about Peace Road out there at Peace, where the Joel is, and when I was at the city council meeting, that was one of the questions. I think Mike, I don't like the name, spoke about wanting to build more houses there or getting more development out there. What are your thoughts about that? When we're talking about Peace Road and 23, where it comes together, and what would you like to see happen out there? What do your constituents want to see?
Well, it's funny is I think some of them wanted to leave it the way it is because they're used to it, and that's why they bought out there. But I also know that area out there is growing quite a bit. I would love to see more restaurants and business that go out that way, just because when you do go out that way, there's not that much out there. I mean, you have Hobnobbers and Little Caesars, Tom and Jerry's now. Hopefully they'd stay, but I doubt it. So you don't see much out there. So I would love to see more businesses to kind of help. I think the city manager and the mayor have done a good job at bringing in some new local businesses. The weed shop, and then Jersey Mike's and Olive Garden and some of these other things that are really kind of coming into Sycamore. So I would like to continue to see a little bit more of that.
And how can you draw more? But we had Marvin Barnes here, and he was talking about how much a percentage of the income that people pay in Sycamore is so much more than they pay in DeKalb, because DeKalb has all this, all the things out of Part 88 right now. And how much Sycamore working in that? How do you want them to work on that to get more big business in there?
Well, I think right now, speaking with the city manager and the mayor, like they are working on it right now. So I think it's just us trying to find that happy marriage between us and what businesses do want to come in here. You see kind of some of the things that DeKalb is offering. How can we kind of tap into that a little bit? If there's anything on Peace Road, going into DeKalb that we can potentially utilize. But I know that there is a plan and they are working on it. So, I think it's just a matter of time before we can kind of get some of those new businesses in here.
And finally, Mike, the last thing on my list of 5 important things, community aesthetics and local regulations. Now, we talked to Alderman Kofke about the
Beautiful Kate, yeah.
More, and tell us about that. What do you think about this?
That is absolutely awesome. So when I was back in Sterling, we just started doing this, and they were putting murals up all over. And it was kind of the same thing, 50-50. But now you look back, and I was back in town, 2 months ago for a basketball tournament with my son, and the murals are still there. They're still upkept. They still look great. I think it adds a little bit of character to your city, and I think what Alderperson Kosky's doing is fantastic. And adding more. I would love to add even more than what we already have, because I do think it adds a little bit of character, a little bit of flair for Sycamore, and a little bit of history. Again, you think we talk about history. Think about 10 years or. When my son's in high school and, they go to the movie theater and, they see, it just adds a little bit more,
Yeah, when I first came here about 25 years ago, I learned about the rivalry between DeKalb and Sycamore, dating back to when they wanted the courthouse built in DeKalb, and then, of course, ended up being built in Sycamore. But the rivalry had the sports field as well. They got to one point where I guess the rivalry got so intense they stopped doing it for a while. And, of course, now we have the combination for the football and the basketball, where the teams come together and then both athletic departments benefit. What a wonderful thing!
That is so cool. The atmosphere is great. I think it is amazing. We usually go to the football and the basketball game all the time, and the crowds get into it, and the games are usually good. I think this past year, Sycamore was down in the fourth quarter and had to come back to beat DeKalb, and then this year, I know DeKalb basketball is a little bit down this year. And, they were able to fight back and hold off Sycamore at the Convocation Center or the Convention Center. So I think it's fantastic. I think it's good for the future as well, too. And both my son and daughter being able to see that and eventually wanting to play in that. But I think it's more so when I lived in Sterling, it was always Sterling and Rock Falls. Like, those were the 2 big rivalries, right? Very similar to Sycamore DeKalb. But up here, there is a rivalry, but it's almost like a brotherly rivalry. And when I say that is a lot of the kids nowadays, they'll play together. So we were talking about that AAU team that I coach. One of the coaches from DeKalb, and then obviously I'm from Sycamore, but the team is split 50-50. So it's half Sycamore, half DeKalb. So they become friends. So as they continue to play together, by the time they get to those games and they play in high school, they're going to be buddies. Obviously they're still going to want to beat each other, but I think that may add a little bit into the rivalry. But I think as of late, I would say that our biggest rivalry is probably Canelan.
And do you think they're going to get beat this year? What are they, 33-0?
Yeah, they play tonight, actually. Actually, my son and I are going to go to the game at NIU tonight. They play...
Someone was asking me about what
Morton, I believe.
It's like when Sycamore plays Canelan.
And
of course, there's no describing that gym the way at Canelan. It's just...
It's phenomenal in both gyms.
Sycamore too.
And both gyms. And when the games are close, like I tell you what, that team is phenomenal. They got some really good players.
They do.
I think they'll be. They got a big test tonight, so I think they play more now. So we'll see. We'll be able to see if they can get past them tonight.
Yeah. Well, Coach, this has been great. Coach, much fun to coach you, but it's just a pleasure to get to know you better. And you continue to walk that fine line in Sycamore between that small town atmosphere and yet having to grow as well. And I think you're just the guy to keep that going, and you want to keep that going, right?
No, absolutely, yeah. Listen, if somebody once told me, if either adapt or die. So if we don't adapt and change, then we're going to get left behind. DeKalb is going to continue to get bigger and bigger. Not that it's a competition with DeKalb, but obviously the comparison. But we got to do something to continue to grow and move Sycamore in the right direction. Not that we're going in the wrong direction, but continue to grow and develop and give opportunities and bring these businesses for our constituents and while making Sycamore the place to live.
And you know what's impressive with you is that you're invested because you have your family here. You want to raise your family here, so you're not going anywhere, right?
Oh, absolutely not. No, we absolutely love
No
it.
portal for you. There's no portal for Alderman.
No portal for me. And I know initially my work was trying to get me to leave for a while, but listen, I love where we're at, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, which is crazy because when we initially moved here, right? So we went to NIU. We lived in Texas. We moved around quite a bit, but we were in San Antonio, Texas before we moved back.
That's a beautiful town.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love the food, the weather, the people are so nice. Yeah, it was amazing. Yep, yeah. We used to live 20 minutes from there.
Okay.
20 minutes from the Riverwalk, yeah. So when we were looking at places to come back, we were looking in the suburbs because obviously I cover the Chicago Metroland area. And she's like, oh, let's just go check Sycamore real quick. And I was like, no, I'm not. It's too close to DeKalb. I don't want to do it.
Really?
Now, mind you, when I was at NIU, we never came to Sycamore. And if we did, it was like once or twice to go to MVPs, right? So we came back, and I was like, no, it's going to be like, like it was in the old days, and I don't really want that. So she's like, let's just go check one place. And I was like, all right, let's go. So we checked it, and I didn't want to look at this place at all. And sure enough, it ends up being the house that I buy in Sycamore. And now I look back, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I absolutely love it. My kids love it. Their teachers are phenomenal. The school district is phenomenal. They have their group of people. My wife and I have our group of people. So yeah, it's
Not to mention the quality podcast. Yeah.
oh, absolutely, yeah. This one, yeah, it's unleashed. Yeah, we love it.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you again. Mike Rivalries has been our guest at Sycamore Alderman and Sycamore. Thanks for what you do, Mike. Keep up the great work, sir, and we look forward to having you back again real soon.
Oh, definitely. I appreciate the invite, and thank you so much.
That's City Ryan at Least, podcast number 47.